Ethan pulled his hoodie tighter around his face as the cold breeze slithered through the empty street. It was late, later than he had intended, but Maya was waiting, and the last bus of the night would be here any minute. His phone buzzed in his hand, the soft glow illuminating his fingers. "Can't wait to see you. Be safe." Heart emoji. Maya's text read. He smiled, but something in his gut twisted. The street was too quiet. Even for this hour, there should have been some life. Drunken laughter from a bar down the road, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional rattle of a passing cyclist, but there was nothing. Just the wind, hollow and biting. The bus headlights appeared down the street, piercing through the thin veil of mist. It rolled up to the curb with a long, mechanical sigh, doors cracking open like old, brittle bones. Ethan hesitated. The inside was darker than it should have been. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly, their dim glow casting the rows of empty seats into shifting shadows. He stepped inside. The driver sat rigidly in his seat. Navy cap pulled low over his face, uniform crisp and clean, almost too clean. His hands gripped the wheel tightly, knuckles stark against his pale skin. "Evening," Ethan said hesitantly, dropping a few coins into the fare box. The driver said nothing. Ethan glanced up. The man's face was obscured in shadow, but his jaw was unnaturally still. He didn't even seem to breathe. A strange unease prickled at the back of Ethan's neck. Shaking it off, he moved toward the middle of the bus and slid into a seat by the window. The vehicle lurched forward with a jolt, sending him slightly off balance. Outside, the streets rolled by, but something was off. The storefronts were dark. No cars lined the roads. No distant figures walked the sidewalks. It was like the entire city had emptied overnight. Ethan frowned. Had he fallen asleep at some point? Had he missed something? He reached for his phone to check the time. The screen was black. Confused, he pressed the power button. Nothing. It had been fine just minutes ago. A low hum filled the space, a mechanical vibration, subtle but growing. The bus was speeding up. Ethan turned his head toward the driver. "Hey!" he called out. "You missed my stop." No response. He stood, gripping the seat as the bus rocked slightly. "Hey man, I said you." The driver's hands clenched the wheel, knuckles wide, shoulders rising with the force of his grip. "Sir?" Ethan's voice wavered now. Still nothing. He yanked the emergency stop cord. No ding, no reaction. Panic rolled up his throat. The street outside had changed. There were no more buildings, no street signs, no stoplights, just endless, unmarked roads stretching into a deep, suffocating dark. Ethan's breath hitched. He stumbled back toward his seat, trying to steady himself. The temperature inside the bus was dropping. His breath misted in front of him, and the air took on a damp, stale quality, like old fabric left to rot. The bus hit a bump, and for a moment, the flickering lights went out completely. Darkness. In that split second, something shifted in the reflection of the window. Not his own, another shape, seated a few rows behind him. When the lights flickered back to life, the seat was empty. Ethan turned sharply, his pulse hammering. "Who's there?" Silence. But the seatbelt on that row was twisted, strained, like someone had just been sitting there. The hum of the bus grew louder. The vehicle shook. Ethan moved back to the front. "Stop the bus! Let me off!" The driver didn't move. A low sound broke the silence. Breathing. Not his. It was coming from behind him. Slow. Labored. Ethan's throat dried. He turned his head ever so slightly, just enough to catch movement in his periphery. A reflection in the driver's rearview mirror. Someone was sitting directly behind him. His hands clenched into fists. His body frozen. He hadn't heard anyone move, hadn't felt anyone sit down, but they were there. He could feel the weight of their gaze on the back of his neck. The air grew thick with the smell of something damp and decayed. His own voice came out barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" A slow, rasping exhale. "You shouldn't be here." Ethan spun around. Nothing. The seat was empty. His breathing was ragged now, his chest rising and falling in sharp gasps. He stumbled back to his seat, pressing his hands against his forehead. "Wake up. Just wake up." The lights flickered. A whisper brushed against his ear. "Wake up." A jolt ran through his spine. He turned. Too late. Cold, unseen hands gripped his shoulders. The world tilted. His vision blurred. Darkness swallowed him whole. A deep breath. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He was sitting in his seat. The bus hummed softly, the dim yellow lights glowing steadily. His phone buzzed in his hand. Maya's text lit up the screen. "Can't wait to see you. Be safe." Heart emoji. Maya's text read. Ethan's chest heaved. His fingers trembled. His mind scrambled for an explanation. That was a dream. It had to be a dream. Slowly, he turned his head. The seat beside him was empty, but there was something wrong. The windows were fogged. Faint traces of fingerprints streaking down the glass. The scent of old fabric and damp air clung to the upholstery, and the weight, the heavy, suffocating weight of something unseen, still pressing against him. The bus slowed. The doors hissed open. The night beyond was void-like, endless, blank. Ethan's body tensed. He had a choice: get off or stay seated. His body refused to move. The doors remained open, waiting, but deep down, he knew they never stayed open for long, and when they closed, the ride would begin again.